Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive into another exciting topic? This time we're journeying back to ancient Egypt.
A fascinating civilization.
Definitely. But we're going beyond just pyramids and pharaohs today. We're digging into their secret weapon,
Oh, and what's that?
their mastery of communication.
Intriguing.
It really is. We've got a ton of sources on ancient Egyptian writing, and believe me, it's so much more than hieroglyphs, although those are pretty cool too.
Right, those iconic images come to mind immediately. But I'm ready to go deeper.
Well, get this, the ancient Egyptians didn't just see writing as a practical tool.
Oh, tell me more.
They believed it held, get this, spiritual power, like a direct link to the divine.
Wow. Divine communication, that's something else. So where do we start?
Well, our sources point to the god Thoth, the one credited with inventing writing.
Okay, yes, I've heard of him.
He wasn't just the god of scribes, he was the god of wisdom and knowledge itself. Talk about a powerful endorsement for putting pen to papyrus, right?
Absolutely, that's a pretty big deal. I mean, to believe that writing was a gift from the gods.
Exactly. But why did they believe that? What made writing so sacred to them?
Well, there are a few theories. Some scholars think it comes from their deep connection to nature, especially the Nile.
Ah, the Nile, the lifeblood of ancient Egypt.
Exactly. Just like the Nile's floods brought life and renewal, they might have seen writing as similarly powerful, a way to shape reality itself.
So by putting something in writing, they believed they could actually make it happen.
It's a possibility. They believed that capturing thoughts and ideas gave them a form of influence.
Wow. No wonder they treated those hieroglyphs with such reverence. They weren't just symbols, they were like sacred gifts.
Exactly. And that reverence, it went beyond just the writing itself. It permeated their entire culture, from leadership to, well, their whole legacy.
Okay, so we've talked about the sacred, but what about the everyday? Did they use writing for more, well, mundane things too?
Oh, absolutely. We tend to picture hieroglyphs in tombs and temples, right?
Right, very grand and mysterious.
But get this, they actually used them for everything. Government decrees, legal documents.
Wow, so it was like official business, but in hieroglyphs.
Exactly. Even shopping lists.
No way! You're kidding, shopping lists too.
It's true. It just goes to show how integrated writing was into their lives.
Mm.
And here's where it gets even more interesting. To manage all this information, they developed different scripts.
Different scripts, so like not just hieroglyphics.
Right, hieroglyphs were pretty much reserved for formal sacred stuff,
Yeah.
but for everyday use.
They needed something a bit quicker, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's where hieratic comes in. Think of it as a cursive script, much faster to write.
Ah, so like how we use shorthand or abbreviations today. Makes sense.
Exactly. And then later on, they developed demotic and even simpler scripts.
So they were really thinking ahead, making writing accessible.
That's right. It shows they weren't just hoarding knowledge for the elite. They wanted to spread information more widely.
That's fascinating. And speaking of knowledge, our sources mention scribes. They weren't just note takers, right?
Oh, no, they were so much more than that.
They were like the keepers of ancient Egypt's knowledge.
Absolutely. Imagine they were trained to read, write, interpret complex information.
Hmm.
They were the historians, lawyers, even architects of their time. Talk about multi-talented.
Wow, that's amazing. They were entrusted with so much. Their dedication to preserving information is remarkable.
It is, and it makes you think about how important accurate record keeping is, even today, right?
Definitely, because once knowledge is lost, it's not easy to get back.
Exactly, and thankfully, their meticulous records offer us this incredible window into their world.
It makes you realize, even in our digital age, how we document and save information really matters.
It does. And speaking of documenting, it reminds me of something crucial to understanding ancient Egypt.
The Rosetta Stone. It's like the ultimate key to unlocking ancient Egyptian secrets.
Right. Imagine trying to solve a puzzle, a really complex one, without knowing what the picture is supposed to be.
Hmm.
That's what it was like trying to decipher hieroglyphs before they found the Rosetta Stone.
It's incredible to think. One stone slab, found by chance, could unravel centuries of mystery. What did we learn?
Oh, a deeper understanding of so much. Their beliefs about the afterlife, for one.
Ah, the afterlife. Now that's a whole other communication challenge.
You can say that again. It really is fascinating. It's often said, that
Yeah.
the ancient Egyptians were obsessed with death.
Right, I've heard that too.
But honestly, I think it's more accurate to say they were, how do I put it, captivated by what came after.
Eternal life, right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And figuring out how to ensure it went well.
Now that's a communication challenge if I've ever heard one.
No kidding. It took some serious ingenuity.
Well, speaking of ingenuity, our sources talk about this Book of the Dead. Sounds kind of ominous, don't you think?
Definitely a catchy title,
Yeah.
though not really a book in the way we think of it.
Oh, how so?
Well, it was more like, a collection of spells, hymns, instructions, that kind of thing.
And all meant to guide you through the afterlife.
Precisely. Often inscribed on papyrus scrolls, buried with the deceased.
Wow, like a spiritual travel guide. So were these written in hieroglyphs too?
Often, yes. They believed that the act of writing these spells, of capturing them in physical form, it, imbued them with power.
So the act of writing was just as important as the words themselves?
It seems that way, yes.
Yeah.
Imagine they were essentially trying to communicate with the gods, pleading their case for a good afterlife.
Wow. Talk about high stakes communication. And it wasn't just through written text, was it? There were the tombs too.
Right, covered with hieroglyphs, all incredibly detailed.
Because it wasn't just about burial, right? Their tombs were like gateways to the afterlife.
Exactly. Adorned with scenes from their lives, their achievements, prayers for their journey.
So they were literally using their communication skills to try and ensure a smooth transition into
Yeah,
eternity.
it certainly seems that way.
Wow, just incredible. But let's shift gears a bit, shall we? We've talked about the afterlife, but what about life here on Earth? Specifically, how did they use communication to govern, their vast empire?
Yes. A bit different from today's world, of course.
No social media influencers back then.
No Instagram pharaohs, that's for sure. But they were masters of visual communication, projecting their power and authority.
Well, they certainly knew how to build impressive structures, those massive temples, the obelisks.
Exactly. They understood the impact of size, of grandeur. Those monuments were like giant billboards declaring their power.
Go big or go home, right?
Right. But it wasn't just about intimidation. They covered those monuments with hieroglyphs, telling stories.
So the decorations weren't purely decorative.
Not at all. They were strategic. The hieroglyphs spoke of the pharaoh's lineage, victories, their close relationship with the gods.
It's like a public declaration of their right to rule.
Exactly. Legitimizing their power, creating a sense of stability and continuity.
And it wasn't just for the elite, was it?
No, not at all. They also used hieroglyphs for public announcements, laws, even moral codes.
Inscribed in public spaces so everyone could see.
Precisely. Even those who couldn't read the hieroglyphs could understand the message through the images, the symbols.
That's amazing. They managed to communicate with a diverse population, many of whom, weren't literate,
It really speaks to their grasp of visual storytelling.
creating a kind of universal language that transcended those literacy barriers.
Exactly. Everyone could get the message.
It's like they wove communication into the very fabric of their civilization.
Absolutely. From grand monuments to intricate hieroglyphs, messages were everywhere.
And they were carefully crafted, each one with a specific purpose.
Right. Nothing was left to chance.
It makes you wonder, what can we learn from all this? I mean, their civilization existed thousands of years ago, but those communication challenges, they still feel surprisingly relevant today, don't you think?
They do. It's remarkable how much we can learn from them. One thing that stands out to me is their focus on, clarity, on having a real purpose behind each message.
So like they use hieroglyphs to communicate specific meanings?
Exactly. And similarly, we need to be intentional about the messages we put out there. Whether we're writing an email, designing a website, or even just talking to someone.
Choosing the right words, tone, medium.
Yes, it all matters. We have to think about how our message will be received, how we want people to react.
And in today's world, we can't forget the visuals either.
Oh, absolutely. In our image-saturated world, visuals are more vital than ever.
They grab our attention, make things memorable.
And they can convey emotion in ways that words sometimes can't.
Like those brand logos, the colors, the imagery they use to instantly communicate their values.
Right. They're tapping into that same understanding of visual communication that the ancient Egyptians had, perhaps instinctively.
It's incredible to think that a civilization so far removed from us in time still has so much to teach us about something as fundamental as communication.
It really is. It shows that some principles are timeless. No matter how much our technology evolves, the core of effective communication remains surprisingly consistent.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about how these ancient principles still resonate today. It makes you wonder, are we really that different from them?
It's a question worth asking for sure. We may not be carving our messages in stone anymore.
Though we do have digital stone tablets, I guess, if you think about it.
True enough. But that drive to communicate, to connect, to leave our mark on the world, that's something humans have always done. in one way or another.
Absolutely. It's timeless. And speaking of leaving a mark, we've talked about their monuments, the hieroglyphs. But what about everyday Egyptians? Did they get in on the communication action too?
Oh, absolutely. Scribes might have held a prestigious position, but literacy wasn't limited to just the elite few.
Oh, really? So even regular folks were writing stuff down.
It seems so. We find examples of hieroglyphs, hieratic, even Demotic script in all sorts of places.
Like where?
Pottery, household objects, letters, even graffiti.
Wait, graffiti. They had graffiti back then.
It appears so. It seems like that urge to, well, express yourself in public spaces is a tale as old as time.
I wonder what they wrote about. Was their ancient graffiti as profound as, the stuff on their temple walls?
Well, who knows? Maybe some of it was love notes, others complaining about the price of grain. But the point is, every inscription, no matter how big or small, adds to the story.
Exactly. It gives us a glimpse into their lives, their thoughts, their hopes, even if those thoughts are just, ugh, this grain is overpriced.
Precisely.
Hmm.
It reminds us that history isn't just about the big events, the wars, the rulers. It's about the everyday lives of people.
And speaking of everyday lives and the afterlife they believed in so strongly, I'm curious, what can their attempts to communicate beyond the grave teach us? What can we learn from that?
One thing that strikes me is how much effort they poured into making sure their messages would be heard.
They weren't just like hoping for the best.
It seems not. They wanted to tip the scales in their favor, ensure they got a good afterlife.
And they believed writing could help them do that.
It seems so, yes. That act of inscription, of meticulously crafting those words and images, it was crucial.
It was like taking control of their destiny, even in the face of the ultimate unknown.
Yes. It highlights this very human desire to find meaning, to believe that our lives matter even if we're gone.
And communication in all its forms was their way of doing that, of reaching out, connecting with something larger than themselves.
Exactly. Their voices, their stories, echoing down through time, that was their legacy.
And it's a legacy that continues to fascinate and inspire us today. As we wrap up our deep dive into ancient Egypt, it's clear we've uncovered more than just historical facts. We've uncovered something truly timeless, those core human desires to communicate, to share our stories, to make sense of our place in the world.
So well said. And just as the ancient Egyptians poured their hearts into their messages, maybe we too can find inspiration in their story.
A reminder that the messages we send today, they have the power to shape not just our present, but also our future, our legacy.
Precisely. It's a powerful thought to carry with us.
It really is. A huge thank you to you for joining us today and sharing your expertise. It's been an amazing journey.
The pleasure was all mine. Thank you for having me.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this incredible adventure through time. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and until next time, keep the conversation going.